The information provided in this comprehensive educational presentation is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional financial, legal, tax, academic, or investment advisory services. The landscape of higher education funding in the United States, including private scholarships, federal grants, student loans, and institutional financial aid methodologies, is highly complex and subject to continuous, unpredictable changes in federal legislation, state appropriations, and individual institutional policy. Strategies discussed regarding the free application for federal student aid, the college scholarship service profile, and private scholarship acquisition represent historical trends and potential outcomes based on past data, not guarantees of future financial awards, debt reduction, or university admissions. Furthermore, navigating the complex tax implications related to educational grants, particularly the strict Internal Revenue Service distinctions between qualified tuition expenses and fully taxable room, board, and stipend provisions, requires certified professional oversight. Viewers are strongly advised to conduct their own exhaustive due diligence and consult with licensed fiduciary financial planners, certified public accountants, and official university financial aid officers before making any binding financial decisions, liquidating assets, or assuming any form of educational debt. This content is designed exclusively to provide a foundational, analytical understanding of the United States scholarship and financial aid systems, and your individual, highly specific financial situation will ultimately dictate your unique potential outcomes. Right now, at this exact second, there is a hidden multi-billion-dollar discount racket operating in plain sight across the United States higher education system, and unless you understand its deeply embedded, invisible rules, you are going to be the one forced to subsidize the entire operation by paying full retail price. We have been systematically conditioned to look at the staggering, terrifying cost of American higher education, where elite private universities and out-of-state flagship public institutions are now rapidly crossing the threshold of $90,000 for a single academic year, and accept it as an unavoidable, fixed barrier to entry. But the highly controversial reality of the United States collegiate financial ecosystem is that the advertised tuition rate, almost universally referred to as the sticker price, is largely a mathematical illusion. It is a strategically engineered, psychologically manipulative number designed primarily to extract maximum capital from the highest percentile of wealth, while simultaneously leveraging the illusion of deep discounts to manipulate institutional rankings and secure enrollment from the middle class. The true, actual cost of attendance for any given student is determined by a highly guarded, opaque algorithmic system of financial aid and institutional scholarship distribution that the vast majority of American applicants and their families completely misunderstand. Let us look at a deeply concerning historical trend that perfectly illustrates the magnitude of this crisis. Over the last 4 decades, the cost of a standard 4-year collegiate degree in the United States has surged by over 1,200%, vastly outstripping the rate of standard inflation, the appreciation of the housing market, and most importantly, the stagnation of middle-class wage growth. This hyperinflationary environment has actively trapped an entire generation beneath the crushing, compounding weight of over $1.7 trillion in collective student loan debt, fundamentally altering the macroeconomic landscape by delaying homeownership, stalling retirement contributions, and widening the generational wealth gap. Yet, inside that exact same seemingly impenetrable system, an estimated $100 million in private scholarship capital goes entirely unawarded every single year, completely abandoned, simply because no one applied for it, or because applicants failed to understand the precise bureaucratic requirements necessary to claim those funds. But unawarded private money is only a microscopic fraction of the actual systemic problem you are facing. Consider a historical case study that plays out thousands of times every single spring across the country, devastating families who thought they did everything right. An ambitious, highly motivated high school senior spends hundreds of grueling hours meticulously writing essays, gathering letters of recommendation, and submitting complex applications to private organizations, local Rotary clubs, and massive corporate philanthropic foundations. Against all statistical odds, their hard work pays off, and they secure $20,000 in outside, private merit scholarships. They celebrate with their family, logically believing they have just significantly reduced their future debt burden and made their dream school affordable. But when their official financial aid award letter arrives from their chosen university a few weeks later, they discover a devastating, largely hidden financial mechanism known as scholarship displacement. Because the student successfully brought in $20,000 of outside, private money, The university quietly and legally reduces the student's institutional need-based grant aid by that exact same $20,000. The student worked exhaustively for months to win free money, only to realize that their net out-of-pocket cost to attend the university remained exactly the same. They effectively spent their senior year of high school fundraising on behalf of a multi-billion-dollar university endowment, rather than enriching their own financial standing. This predatory paradox is exactly why chasing random, low-yield internet scholarships without a comprehensive, macro-level strategy is a direct path to profound frustration and severe financial inefficiency. You are currently entering a high-stakes financial negotiation against massive institutions, backed by sophisticated enrollment management software and teams of actuaries, and you are currently stepping up to the table completely blindfolded. The universities know exactly how much your family can theoretically afford to pay, down to the exact dollar, utilizing a highly invasive comprehensive review of your historical tax returns, your real estate equity, your retirement holdings, and your investment portfolios. They will strategically deploy their massive institutional scholarship reserves not necessarily to reward your academic hard work or civic virtue, but to actively optimize their own institutional yield rates, shape their demographic targets, and maximize their net tuition revenue. If you are a student, a parent trying to protect your retirement savings, or an adult learner attempting to navigate the unforgiving labyrinth of American educational finance today, the system is structurally designed to work against your long-term financial solvency, but it can absolutely be decoded, dismantled, and utilized to your advantage. The profound high-stakes problem we are solving for you right here and right now is the complete, dangerous asymmetry of information that exists between the University Financial Aid Office and the standard American household. By the end of this intensive deep dive, you will possess a forensic, professional-grade understanding of how the scholarship and financial aid systems truly operate in the United States. We are going to completely dismantle the complex architecture of free collegiate money, moving far beyond the superficial, useless advice of simply telling you to apply early or write a compelling essay. You will learn the critical, often misunderstood structural distinctions between federal Pell Grants, state-sponsored educational initiatives, institutional merit awards, institutional need-based aid, and highly competitive private foundation scholarships. We will explore the precise step-by-step mathematical mechanics of the free application for federal student aid, uncovering how minor, seemingly insignificant errors in asset reporting, such as confusing a sheltered 529 college savings plan with an unsheltered custodial checking account, can trigger federal algorithms that instantly disqualify you from tens of thousands of dollars in potential state and federal support. Furthermore, we will critically dissect the College Scholarship Service Profile, the notoriously rigorous financial document used by elite private institutions, revealing how they calculate your expected family contribution utilizing aggressive institutional metrics that consistently shock middle-class families by factoring in home equity and non-liquid assets. You will understand how to actively build a strategic, highly targeted scholarship portfolio that deliberately avoids the institutional displacement trap, focusing your energy on securing specific institutional grants that stack constructively and legally with your private awards to actually reduce your out-of-pocket cost. We will also examine powerful case studies demonstrating how informed students strategically appeal their initial, automated financial aid offers, utilizing competing university acceptance letters to professionally negotiate thousands of dollars in additional, unadvertised institutional grants. This masterclass is not about relying on a lucky lottery ticket from a random essay contest. This is about understanding the systemic, macroeconomic flow of institutional capital. You will learn exactly how enrollment managers categorize applicants, how the concept of an institutional tuition discount rate drives every single university behavior, and how you can strategically position yourself as a highly desirable, revenue-positive asset that institutions are actively willing to effectively pay to enroll. This comprehensive, specialized knowledge will fundamentally transform you from a passive consumer of an overpriced educational product into an active, strategic negotiator of your financial future, potentially saving you from decades of crippling student loan repayment and allowing you to leverage the United States scholarship system exactly as it was originally designed to be used by the financial elite. The complex reality of collegiate funding has been hidden behind bureaucratic red tape for too long. Let us begin the process of pulling back the curtain and unraveling the deeply embedded secrets of the American financial aid machine. To understand how the scholarship system operates in 2026, we must first completely dismantle the word scholarship itself. In the United States, the general public uses this single term to describe entirely different financial instruments that operate under completely separate sets of federal laws, institutional algorithms, and tax codes. When you hear that a student won a scholarship, your immediate assumption might be that an organization handed them a check. In reality, the vast majority of collegiate funding in the modern era is never physically seen by the student. It exists strictly as a ledger adjustment on a university billing statement. Broadly speaking, the financial aid ecosystem is divided into two distinct hemispheres, which are need-based aid and merit-based aid, and failing to understand the exact dividing line between these two systems is the primary reason families accidentally disqualify themselves from tens of thousands of dollars. Need-based aid is entirely agnostic of a student's academic brilliance, athletic prowess, or extracurricular achievements. It is a cold mathematical calculation based purely on a family's historical financial data. The foundational gateway to this entire hemisphere is the free application for federal student aid, commonly known as the FAFSA. In recent years, the federal government fundamentally overhauled this system, completely eliminating the old expected family contribution metric and replacing it with the Student Aid Index. This transition was not merely a change in terminology. It represented a massive shift in how middle-class wealth is evaluated. The Student Aid Index is an eligibility index number that university financial aid offices use to determine how much federal and institutional need-based aid you qualify to receive. It is calculated using a rigorous formula that analyzes the adjusted gross income of the parents, the income of the student, and the unprotected assets held by both parties, cross-referencing this data directly with the Internal Revenue Service. Imagine if we look at a classic historical case study involving a typical middle-class household. We will call them the Harrison family, residing in suburban Chicago in the year 2026. The parents earn a combined adjusted gross income of $130,000. They have been diligent savers, accumulating $40,000 in a standard, non-retirement mutual fund account, alongside a healthy 401k and substantial equity in their primary residence. When the Harrisons submit their FAFSA, the federal methodology ignores their primary home equity and their official retirement accounts, which provides a massive advantage. However, it aggressively targets their $40,000 in liquid mutual funds. The federal algorithm dictates that parents must contribute up to 47% of their discretionary income and up to 5.64% of their unprotected assets each year toward college costs. Concurrently, the algorithm is far more punitive toward the student, assessing student-owned assets at a staggering 20%. If the Harrisons had mistakenly placed that $40,000 mutual fund under their child's name in a custodial account, hoping for a tax advantage, the federal formula would expect the student to contribute $8,000 of that money in the first year alone, instantly wiping out $8,000 of potential need-based grant eligibility. Because they kept the asset in the parents' names, the asset penalty is only around $2,200. This granular, highly specific asset positioning is exactly how informed families legally optimize their financial profile months before submitting any federal paperwork. Despite the Harrisons' careful asset management, their student aid index still comes back relatively high due to their income bracket. They immediately realize they do not qualify for the federal Pell Grant, which is the cornerstone of federal need-based aid, reserved strictly for lower-income households. This places the Harrisons in the most dangerous demographic in the American higher education system. They are the missing middle. They earn too much money to qualify for substantial federal or state need-based subsidies, but they absolutely do not earn enough discretionary income to easily write a check for a university sticker price that is approaching $85,000 a year. This is the exact moment where the second hemisphere of the system, merit-based aid, becomes the absolute critical focus, and where universities deploy highly sophisticated psychological pricing strategies. Merit-based aid is awarded based on institutional priorities, which historically include high standardized test scores, exceptional grade point averages, geographic diversity, or specific artistic and athletic talents. However, you must understand that institutional merit scholarships are very rarely acts of pure academic philanthropy. They are highly calculated tuition discounting mechanisms engineered by university enrollment managers to maximize net tuition revenue, while simultaneously shaping the demographic profile of their incoming freshman class. Consider another scenario featuring a high school senior named David from Atlanta. David has a phenomenal academic record and applies to a highly prestigious, mid-sized private university in the Northeast. The advertised sticker price for tuition, room, and board at this institution is an intimidating $78,000. Upon acceptance, the university sends David a beautifully designed, congratulatory letter offering him the Presidential Founders Scholarship, proudly stating they are awarding him $35,000 a year for 4 years. David and his family are ecstatic, feeling deeply validated by this massive financial award. But when you strip away the marketing, the economic reality is entirely different. The university costs $78,000. Subtracting the $35,000 scholarship leaves David with a net out-of-pocket cost of $43,000 per year. The university knew, based on their sophisticated internal data modeling, that a student from David's specific zip code with his family's income profile was statistically unlikely to ever pay the full $78,000. By artificially inflating the sticker price and then offering a massive, prestigious-sounding discount, the institution successfully secured a highly qualified student who will still pay them $43,000 annually, all while making the student feel like they won a major academic lottery. Historical trends show that the average tuition discount rate for first-time undergraduates at private institutions consistently hovers around 55%. This means the sticker price is essentially a fictional number for more than half of the student body, serving primarily as an anchor point to make the discounted price feel like a once-in-a-lifetime bargain. Understanding the vast difference between federal need calculations and institutional tuition discounting is the foundation of building a winning strategy. But the most complex and potentially devastating layer of this entire ecosystem occurs when students attempt to bridge the gap between their financial aid offers and their actual bills by winning private, outside scholarships from local businesses, corporate foundations, and community organizations. What happens when the Harrison family, having navigated the FAFSA and accepted a meticulously calculated institutional aid package, excitedly informs their university that their child just won an independent $10,000 local Rotary Club scholarship? The answer involves a highly controversial, mathematically ruthless practice that legally strips millions of dollars from hardworking students every single year, and you need to know exactly how to recognize and aggressively bypass this institutional trap before you waste hundreds of hours applying for money you will never actually get to keep. The practice is formally known within the financial aid industry as scholarship displacement. To understand the mechanics of this deeply frustrating phenomenon, we must look at federal regulations regarding over-awarding and how university financial aid offices interpret these rules to protect their own bottom lines. The federal government strictly mandates that a student cannot receive total financial aid that exceeds the official calculated cost of attendance for that specific university. The cost of attendance is a highly regulated, comprehensive figure that includes direct billed costs like tuition, mandatory fees, and on-campus room and board, alongside estimated indirect costs such as textbooks, a personal computer, travel back and forth to your home state, and daily personal expenses. Let us imagine a precise scenario to illustrate this mathematical trap playing out in real time. Consider a student named Jessica, a brilliant, highly motivated high school senior from Columbus, Ohio, navigating the complex collegiate funding system in the year 2026. Jessica is accepted into a prestigious, private liberal arts college in the Pacific Northwest where the total, official cost of attendance is exactly $85,000 per academic year. Based on the rigorous financial data her family submitted through the FAFSA, the federal government generates her student aid index. Let us say her calculated index is precisely $35,000. This mathematically dictates that the university recognizes Jessica has exactly $50,000 of demonstrated financial need. To meet this massive financial need, the university enrollment management team constructs a targeted financial aid package. They offer her a $35,000 institutional grant, which is pure, unrepayable money drawn directly from the university endowment. They also package her with the standard federal direct student loans totaling $5,500 and a federal work-study expectation of $3,000, meaning she has to work in the campus library or dining hall for 10 hours a week to earn that money. Her total packaged aid equals $43,500. Notice carefully that the university did not meet her full demonstrated need of $50,000. They left a gap of $6,500 of unmet need. Therefore, the family is currently responsible for paying their original $35,000 student aid index, plus that $6,500 gap of unmet need. Jessica and her parents are staring down a terrifying out-of-pocket cost of $41,500 for a single year of undergraduate education. Determined to close that painful financial gap and protect her parents from liquidating their retirement accounts, Jessica spends her entire senior year aggressively applying to corporate foundations, local charities, and regional philanthropic organizations. In a massive life-changing victory, she wins a highly competitive national corporate scholarship worth precisely $15,000. Jessica and her family celebrate, logically assuming her out-of-pocket cost will now drop from $41,500 down to a much more manageable $26,500. She dutifully follows the rules and notifies the University Financial Aid Office of her massive outside win, expecting an updated, significantly cheaper billing statement in the mail. Instead, she becomes a textbook victim of scholarship displacement. The university algorithms instantly recalculate her financial package. Because the federal regulations dictate that her total aid cannot exceed her demonstrated need or total cost of attendance, the university has the ultimate legal authority to adjust the numbers. But instead of letting that $15,000 fill her unmet need and reduce her out-of-pocket costs, the university quietly and legally reduces her institutional grant. The original $35,000 institutional grant is aggressively slashed down to $20,000. The university essentially replaces their own institutional endowment money with the private corporate money Jessica fought so hard to win. Jessica's final out-of-pocket cost remains exactly $41,500. She gained absolutely zero financial benefit from winning that highly competitive outside award. The only entity that benefited from her months of agonizing hard work was the university itself, which just legally saved $15,000 of its own institutional capital, returning it to their massive endowment to spend on recruiting another student. This is a historical trend that has sparked massive national outrage. By 2026, a handful of progressive states have passed legislation attempting to ban scholarship displacement at their public, state-funded universities, but these laws almost never apply to the wealthy, elite private institutions that attract the most ambitious students. Therefore, it remains a pervasive, deeply embedded institutional practice across the country. So how do informed families systematically bypass this devastating trap? You have to approach outside scholarships with the tactical precision of a forensic accountant. The very first, non-negotiable step before you even begin writing a single essay for an outside organization is to meticulously review the specific outside scholarship policy of every single university on your application list. Universities are legally required to publish these policies, but they strategically bury them deep within their financial aid portals under confusing, bureaucratic terminology like outside resource coordination protocols or external aid adjustment guidelines. You are actively searching for universities that practice favorable scholarship stacking instead of predatory displacement. Stacking means the university explicitly allows outside money to first replace the self-help portions of your financial aid package before they ever touch your institutional grants. If Jessica's university practiced true stacking, that $15,000 corporate check would have first wiped out her $6,500 unmet need, then eliminated her $5,500 student loan, and finally wiped out her $3,000 work-study obligation. In a stacking scenario, Jessica drastically improves her financial reality by eliminating her future debt and reducing her physical work burden, all without losing a single dollar of institutional grant money. If you find yourself committed to a university that strictly enforces displacement, you still have highly effective strategic options to protect your capital. You must proactively bypass the university and negotiate directly with the private scholarship provider. Many private foundations and corporate boards are entirely unaware that their philanthropic funds are being legally weaponized to save university endowments, rather than helping the student. You can formally request that the private organization defer the scholarship payment to your sophomore or junior year, effectively holding the funds in escrow until a year when your institutional aid might naturally decrease, or until you are living off campus and can demonstrate a higher indirect cost of living. Alternatively, you can request a structural reclassification of the award. If the corporate foundation issues the check directly to the university cashier, the university controls the mathematics. But if the foundation is legally structured to issue the check directly to the student under the strict classification of a technology stipend, an independent living grant, or an off-campus housing allowance, it may bypass the university financial aid algorithms entirely. However, potential outcomes of this advanced strategy include navigating highly complex internal revenue service tax implications, as any scholarship money not directly spent on qualified tuition and mandatory academic fees becomes a fully taxable event for the student. You must meticulously weigh the tax liability against the institutional savings. Understanding this deeply granular level of institutional maneuvering, is exactly what separates the families who successfully graduate debt-free from those who end up financially paralyzed for decades. You cannot simply trust that the system will reward your hard work. You must actively engineer your financial profile to force the system to reward you. We have spent significant time dissecting the free application for federal student aid and how its asset protection allowances are generally somewhat favorable to middle-class homeowners and retirement savers. But what happens when you set your sights on the highest echelon of American higher education? What happens when you apply to the elite private universities, the Ivy League, and the highly selective liberal arts colleges that control the largest multi-billion-dollar endowments in the world? These elite institutions do not just rely on the standard federal methodology to determine what you can pay. They utilize a secondary, ruthlessly invasive financial document that mathematically strips away almost all of those federal asset protections, exposing your home equity, your small business assets, and even the detailed financial profiles of non-custodial divorced parents. You are about to face the most terrifying and aggressively calculated financial document in the entire American educational system, and one minor structural mistake on this specific form can instantly cost your family hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost grant money. That document is the College Scholarship Service Profile, universally recognized throughout the higher education financial sector as the CSS Profile. Administered by the College Board, the exact same private organization responsible for the SAT and Advanced Placement examinations, the CSS Profile is actively utilized by nearly 400 of the wealthiest, most selective private universities and a handful of premier flagship public institutions in the United States. While the free application for federal student aid utilizes what is legally defined as the federal methodology to determine your baseline federal need, these elite institutions deploy a vastly different, highly aggressive algorithm known as the institutional methodology. You must understand the fundamental philosophical difference between these two systems. The federal government is primarily attempting to assess your liquid discretionary income to see if you qualify for taxpayer-funded subsidies. Elite private universities, however, are managing multi-billion-dollar endowments and are attempting to measure your comprehensive total economic footprint. They are aggressively searching for any possible source of hidden wealth or untapped capital that your family could theoretically liquidate, borrow against, or leverage to pay their exorbitant sticker prices. The most profound and historically devastating difference between these two methodologies lies in the treatment of primary home equity. As we previously established, the federal government completely ignores the value of the home you currently live in. But the institutional methodology views primary home equity as a massive, completely accessible piggy bank. Imagine if we look at a highly common scenario in the year 2026 involving the Miller family from New Jersey. The Millers purchased a modest suburban home in 2012 for $300,000. Due to historical trends of rapid real estate appreciation and severe housing inventory shortages over the last decade, their home is now appraised at $850,000. They still owe $200,000 on their mortgage, leaving them with an impressive $650,000 in pure, illiquid home equity. On the federal paperwork, this massive asset is completely invisible, yielding a relatively low and favorable federal student aid index. However, when the Millers submit their CSS profile to an elite Ivy League institution, the algorithm immediately identifies that $650,000. While different institutions apply slightly different internal caps, historical data indicates that many elite universities will assess this home equity at roughly 5% per year. This mathematical calculation instantly adds an additional $32,500 to the Millers' expected family contribution for a single academic year. The university is essentially expecting the Miller family to either take out a massive home equity line of credit, aggressively refinance their mortgage at current 2026 interest rates, or literally sell their family home in order to fund their child's undergraduate education. But the aggressive financial mapping of the CSS profile does not stop at residential real estate. It ruthlessly targets small business owners and independent contractors. Under current federal guidelines, family-owned businesses with fewer than 100 full-time employees are largely protected from federal asset assessments. The institutional methodology offers no such safe harbor. If you own a small landscaping company, a local dental practice, or a freelance consulting firm, the CSS profile requires you to submit comprehensive business tax returns, detailed balance sheets, and accurate valuations of all business equipment, commercial property, and operational inventory. The algorithm then integrates this business net worth directly into your personal asset profile, dramatically inflating your perceived ability to pay. Perhaps the most emotionally volatile and administratively complex aspect of the institutional methodology involves the strict treatment of divorced or separated parents. Under recent federal overhauls, the FAFSA only requires the financial information of the single parent who provided the most financial support to the student over the preceding 12 months. For families where one parent is completely absent or estranged, this provides a massive layer of financial protection. Elite private universities categorically reject this premise. They enforce a strict policy requiring a non-custodial parent profile. Let us examine a case study involving a student named Chloe from Austin, Texas. Chloe lives full-time with her mother, a public school teacher earning $65,000 a year. Her parents divorced a decade ago, and her biological father, a highly successful corporate attorney earning over $400,000 a year, is entirely estranged, providing absolutely zero child support or communication. On the federal forms, Chloe is evaluated strictly on her mother's modest income, qualifying her for maximum federal Pell Grants. However, the elite private university Chloe wishes to attend demands her father's complete tax returns, his investment portfolio details, and even the financial data of his new spouse. The institutional algorithm artificially merges these two completely separated households back together on paper. Because her estranged father possesses massive wealth, the university determines Chloe requires absolutely zero institutional grant money, demanding full retail price. Chloe is now trapped. She cannot legally force her estranged father to pay the $85,000 tuition bill, but the university refuses to offer institutional aid because the father mathematically possesses the capital. While institutions do offer a non-custodial parent waiver process for cases of documented abuse or legal estrangement, historical trends show that financial aid offices are incredibly cynical and highly resistant to approving these waivers without overwhelming, third-party legal documentation from courts, social workers, or law enforcement officials. These severe mathematical realities illustrate why navigating the elite tier of American higher education requires the strategic foresight of a certified public accountant. Families who fail to anticipate the devastating impact of the institutional methodology often experience profound financial shock when they receive their official award letters in the spring of their senior year. They realize too late that their high federal need did not translate into high institutional grant money. They are left staring at a massive, insurmountable financial gap that cannot be realistically covered by standard student loans or part-time campus jobs. But what happens when you do everything correctly? You navigate the treacherous waters of the CSS profile, and the resulting financial aid award from your dream university is still completely unaffordable. What happens when their internal algorithm determines your family should pay $60,000 a year, but your actual real-world bank account dictates that you can only afford $20,000? The vast majority of American families simply accept this initial document as an absolute, non-negotiable final verdict, silently declining the admission offer and walking away from their dream school. But financial aid award letters are not final legal verdicts. They are opening bids in a highly structured, closely guarded institutional negotiation process. There is a deeply hidden, formal mechanism designed to challenge these algorithms, leverage competing university offers, and aggressively force the financial aid office to reconsider their initial calculations. This is where the true financial maneuvering happens, and understanding the precise psychology of an enrollment manager is the only way to successfully execute this advanced strategy. To successfully navigate this formal mechanism, you must completely discard the comforting illusion that university financial aid officers are high school guidance counselors whose primary objective is to fulfill your academic dreams. In the modern landscape of 2026, the financial aid office operates under the strict directive of an enrollment manager. These individuals are highly skilled actuaries and data scientists. Their objective is to construct an incoming freshman class that meets specific academic benchmarks, satisfies diversity goals, and most importantly, generates the precise amount of net tuition revenue required to keep the university fully operational. They analyze a metric called the yield rate, which is the percentage of admitted students who actually choose to enroll. If a university admits 10,000 students but only 2,000 actually submit a deposit, their yield rate is 20%. Enrollment managers are terrified of their yield rate dropping, because a dropping yield rate triggers a catastrophic cascade of financial consequences, potentially leading to immediate budget cuts, massive staff layoffs, and a devastating downgrade in their national prestige rankings. This institutional fear of losing highly qualified applicants to rival universities is your primary leverage point. The legal process of exploiting this leverage is formally known as a professional judgment review. Under the Higher Education Act, university financial aid administrators are granted the sweeping federal authority to manually override the automated data generated by your free application for federal student aid or your college scholarship service profile. They possess the legal power to adjust your income, modify your asset valuations, and recalculate your exact cost of attendance if you can provide rigorous, documented proof of a special financial circumstance that the algorithms completely failed to capture. Imagine if we look at a deeply common historical case study involving the Thompson family from suburban Phoenix, Arizona, navigating this exact process in the spring of 2026. The Thompsons submitted their financial aid applications using tax data from 2 years prior, as federally required. During that specific base tax year, Mr. Thompson received a massive one-time severance package after being laid off from a corporate technology firm, while simultaneously cashing out a portion of his retirement to cover sudden, catastrophic medical expenses for an aging parent. On paper, the automated federal algorithm saw a massive artificial spike in their adjusted gross income. The system mathematically assumed the Thompsons were incredibly wealthy, instantly disqualifying their daughter, Sarah, from any institutional need-based grants at her top-choice university in Southern California. The initial award letter demanded a devastating out-of-pocket payment of $72,000. Instead of simply walking away, the Thompsons initiated a highly strategic professional judgment appeal. They did not send a desperate, emotional email begging for more money. Emotional appeals are historically rejected with automated form letters within 48 hours. Instead, they approached the process like an aggressive corporate audit. They submitted a concise, objective 2-page letter directly to the Director of Financial Aid. In this document, they provided exact chronological dates of the job loss, submitted official termination paperwork, provided detailed W-2 forms reflecting Mr. Thompson's current, significantly lower salary at a new company, and included itemized medical receipts proving that the retirement withdrawal was entirely consumed by healthcare costs and was not discretionary liquid capital. By presenting overwhelming, indisputable documentation, they legally forced the Financial Aid Office to strip away that artificial income spike. The enrollment manager recalculated their profile based on their current, real-time economic reality. The potential outcomes of a meticulously documented need-based appeal are staggering. In Sarah's case, the university revised her package, offering an additional $32,000 in institutional grants per year, transforming an impossible financial burden into a viable educational pathway. But special circumstances involving job loss or medical debt are not the only way to successfully force a recalculation. There is a secondary, vastly more aggressive strategy known as the merit-based appeal, which directly targets the university's yield rate by weaponizing competing acceptance letters. Enrollment managers utilize highly sophisticated software to track exactly which rival institutions they historically lose students to. These are known as cross-admit overlaps. If an enrollment manager at a prestigious university in Boston knows they constantly lose top-tier applicants to a similarly ranked university in Chicago, they will fight viciously to prevent that from happening. Consider a student named Michael from Denver, Colorado. Michael is a phenomenal engineering applicant and is accepted into 2 highly competitive, similarly ranked engineering programs. University A offers him a total financial aid package, leaving him with an out-of-pocket cost of $40,000 a year. University B, their direct geographic and academic rival, offers him a much stronger package, leaving him with an out-of-pocket cost of only $25,000 a year. Michael prefers University A, but the $15,000 price difference is economically impossible for his family to justify. Michael initiates a strategic merit appeal with University A. He sends a highly professional correspondence expressing his profound desire to attend their institution, stating clearly that they are his absolute first choice. However, he immediately pivots, stating that his family has a fiduciary responsibility to make a sound financial decision. He attaches the official unredacted award letter from University B. He is not asking University A to blindly match the offer. He is simply presenting them with the stark economic reality that he holds a substantially better offer from their direct competitor. The enrollment manager at University A is now forced to make a rapid, high-stakes business decision. They review Michael's academic profile and realize he perfectly fulfills their institutional demographic needs. They recognize the competitor university and know they cannot afford to lose another high-achieving student to that specific rival. The historical trends regarding these highly targeted merit appeals show that when an institution has available discretionary funds in their yield protection budget, they will frequently adjust the institutional grant allocation to match or significantly close the gap with the competing offer. In a matter of days, University A revises Michael's award, injecting an additional $12,000 of institutional grant money into his package, securing his enrollment and protecting their yield rate. Executing these appeals requires a profound understanding of institutional timelines. You cannot wait until late May to initiate these negotiations. The vast majority of these discretionary yield protection funds are completely exhausted by the national commitment deadline in early May. The exact moment you have your competing offers in hand in late March or early April, you must launch your appeal strategy. You must present yourself not as a desperate consumer begging for a discount, but as a highly valued asset actively negotiating a complex acquisition. You are a commodity, and you must force these multi-billion-dollar institutions to bid on you. However, even the most flawlessly executed professional judgment appeals and strategic merit negotiations will sometimes fail. The university may simply refuse to adjust the numbers, or their final offer may still leave an insurmountable financial gap of $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000 a year. When the grants run out, when the scholarships are exhausted, and when the appeals are denied, families are forced to look into the abyss of educational borrowing. This is the exact threshold where millions of Americans make single, devastating financial decisions that will permanently cripple their economic future for the next 3 decades. You are about to enter the deeply misunderstood, hyper-predatory world of student loans, where a fundamental misunderstanding of capitalization rates, origination fees, and federal versus private borrowing distinctions can literally bankrupt your family before you even receive your diploma. To navigate the abyss of educational borrowing without destroying your financial future, you must first recognize that not all debt is created equal. In the United States, the student loan market is a bifurcated system consisting of federal loans and private loans, and the legal protections, interest structures, and repayment flexibilities between these two are so vastly different they might as well be from different planets. When a university includes a loan in your financial aid package, they are almost always referring to the Federal Direct Loan Program. This is the only type of debt that is truly subsidized by the American taxpayer, and it is the first line of defense against insolvency. There are 2 primary flavors of these federal loans: subsidized and unsubsidized. If your FAFSA demonstrates significant financial need, the Department of Education may grant you a subsidized loan. This is a massive mathematical advantage because the government pays the interest on that loan while you are in school at least half-time and during a 6-month grace period after graduation. Conversely, the unsubsidized loan starts accruing interest the very second the funds are disbursed to the university bursar. But even with the interest accruing, federal loans carry unique statutory protections that private bank loans simply do not offer. These include access to income-driven repayment plans, which can cap your monthly payment at a small percentage of your discretionary income, and various loan forgiveness programs for public service employees. However, the federal government imposes strict annual borrowing limits on students. For a dependent freshman in 2026, the maximum you can borrow in your own name is $5,500. This cap exists to prevent 18-year-olds with no credit history from assuming 6-figure debt, but it simultaneously creates a massive funding gap that forces families into the much more dangerous territory of Parent Plus loans and private lending. Imagine if we look at a historical case study involving a student named Anthony from Philadelphia. Anthony is accepted into a high-cost private university with a total cost of attendance of $80,000. After his federal grants and his $5,500 student loan, he still has a remaining balance of $40,000 for the year. The University Financial Aid Office suggests that his parents apply for a federal Parent Plus loan to cover the difference. Anthony's parents, believing that because the loan is federal it must be safe, agree to the terms. This is where the mathematical trap snaps shut. Unlike student-level federal loans, Parent Plus loans have no upper limit. A parent can borrow up to the full cost of attendance minus any other aid. Furthermore, Parent Plus loans historically carry significantly higher interest rates than student-level loans and come with a massive upfront origination fee, often around 4%, which is essentially a tax on the debt itself. If Anthony's parents borrow $40,000 a year for 4 years, they aren't just looking at $160,000 in debt. They are looking at a mountain of high-interest capital that, once capitalized, begins to snowball. Capitalization is the process where unpaid interest is added to the principal balance of the loan, creating a new, larger base for future interest calculations. It is interest on interest, and it is the primary engine of the American student debt crisis. If Anthony's parents choose to defer payments until he graduates, that 4-year accumulation of interest is added to the original balance the day he puts on his cap and gown. Potential outcomes of this scenario often result in the original $160,000 loan ballooning into a $200,000 nightmare before the first payment is even due. When families reach the federal borrowing limit and still face a deficit, they often turn to the private loan market, involving household name banks and specialized student lending corporations. This is the highest risk move in the entire scholarship and aid playbook. Private loans are almost exclusively credit-based, meaning a 19-year-old student will almost certainly require a parent or grandparent to act as a co-signer. By signing that document, the parent becomes 100% legally liable for the debt. Unlike federal loans, private loans rarely offer income-based protections. Their interest rates are often variable, meaning they can spike if the Federal Reserve raises rates, and they are notoriously difficult to discharge even in cases of extreme financial hardship or bankruptcy. Consider a scenario involving a character named Maya from Seattle. Maya's parents co-sign a private loan for her final 2 years of university at a variable interest rate that starts at 7%. By the time Maya graduates in 2026, global economic shifts have pushed that rate to 12%. Maya enters the workforce in a competitive entry-level marketing position, but her monthly private loan payment is $1,400, more than her rent. Because it is a private loan, there is no federal safety net. There is no option to lower the payment based on her salary. If Maya misses a payment, it doesn't just damage her credit. It immediately triggers a collection action against her parents, potentially leading to wage garnishments or the placement of liens on their home. This is the dark underbelly of the American dream. The transition from a student with high potential to a debt instrument with a high interest rate. The most critical step in avoiding this fate is understanding the debt-to-income ratio before you ever sign an enrollment contract. A historical trend among financial advisors is the recommendation that a student should never borrow more for their entire degree than they realistically expect to earn in their first year of post-graduation salary. If you are pursuing a degree in social work with an expected starting salary of $45,000, but the university is asking you to take on $80,000 in debt, the math simply does not compute. You are fundamentally overpaying for the credential. However, many students believe they have no choice but to borrow because they were rejected from the massive, famous national scholarships like the Coca-Cola Scholars or the Gates Scholarship. What they don't realize is that these national competitions are essentially lotteries with tens of thousands of applicants for a handful of slots. While the country is obsessed with these mega awards, there is a secondary hyperlocal scholarship market that operates in almost total obscurity. This is the realm of the niche, the specific, and the weird. There are millions of dollars available specifically for students who are descendants of specific military regiments, students who have a documented history of beekeeping, or students who can prove they have spent at least 500 hours volunteering for local historical societies. Because these awards are so specific, they often receive fewer than 10 qualified applicants, making your statistical probability of success exponentially higher. To tap into this hidden reservoir of capital, you have to stop searching on massive, global scholarship databases and start looking at the microscopic level of your own community. You need to investigate the specific trust funds managed by local law firms, the philanthropic branches of regional credit unions, and the internal employee scholarships offered by your parents' employers that are never advertised to the general public. But finding these niche opportunities is only half the battle. To actually win them, you have to master the art of the persuasive narrative, a specific style of writing that connects your personal trauma or triumph directly to the mission statement of the awarding organization without sounding like you are begging for a handout. You are about to learn how to manufacture a winning scholarship persona that captures the attention of board selection committees and forces them to choose you over thousands of other academically qualified peers. This is the psychological blueprint of the scholarship winner, and it starts with a technique known as the narrative hook, which we will dissect to ensure your application never ends up in the rejection pile. The psychological blueprint of a winning scholarship application in 2026 relies on a concept that most applicants fundamentally ignore, which is the institutional mission alignment. You must understand that scholarship committees are not just looking for the smartest student. They are looking for a living, breathing personification of their organization's values. Every private foundation and corporate philanthropic branch was founded by a donor with a specific problem they wanted to solve or a specific type of person they wanted to champion. If you do not reflect that specific archetype back to them, Your perfect GPA and high SAT scores are mathematically irrelevant. To win consistently, you must transition from a generalist applicant to a specialized narrative architect. This starts with the narrative hook. Most students begin their scholarship essays with a cliché, such as "Since I was a child I wanted to be a doctor" or "Education is the key to the future." These are known as graveyard openers because they cause the reader's brain to instantly disengage. A professional-grade narrative hook uses a technique called in media res, which means starting in the middle of the action. You must drop the reader into a high-stakes moment of conflict or realization that demonstrates your character without explicitly stating it. Imagine a case study involving a student named Elena from El Paso, Texas. Elena is applying for a scholarship specifically funded by a regional engineering firm that prioritizes community resilience and infrastructure. Instead of writing about how she likes math, Elena opens her essay with a description of the sound of a failing water pump during a local drought and the specific chemical smell of the alkaline soil in her backyard. She describes her attempt to build a localized gray water filtration system using scrap parts and basic physics. Within the first 2 paragraphs, she has proven she has technical curiosity, a commitment to her specific geographic region, and the grit to solve problems with limited resources. She has aligned her personal story with the mission of the engineering firm before she has even mentioned her career goals. Historical trends in scholarship selection committees show that evaluators are deeply influenced by the concept of the spark. This is a specific detail in an application that makes a student memorable among thousands of entries. The spark is almost always a unique combination of 2 seemingly unrelated interests. If you are just a biology major, you are a commodity. If you are a biology major who spent 3 years restoring vintage motorcycles to fund a local animal shelter, you are a compelling narrative. This is called intersectional branding. You need to look at your life through a lens of data points and find the 2 points that create the most friction and interest. But a compelling story is only one half of the equation. In 2026, the scholarship system has become increasingly reliant on digital presence and social proof. Many high-value private awards now quietly conduct a digital audit of their finalists. This is not just a search for negative content. It is a search for evidence of leadership and consistency. If Elena claims in her essay that she is passionate about water conservation, but her social media profile shows zero engagement with environmental issues, and her LinkedIn profile is completely empty, the committee will sense a narrative disconnect. Potential outcomes of a successful digital audit include moving from a finalist to a winner, because the student's online activity validated their written claims. Furthermore, you must master the art of the letter of recommendation, which is one of the most misunderstood components of the United States scholarship machine. Most students ask the teacher who gave them an A, which results in a generic, useless letter that says the student is hardworking and polite. To win, you need a transactional recommendation. You must provide your recommenders with a brag sheet that specifically outlines the narrative you are trying to push. If you are applying for a leadership scholarship, you should explicitly ask your teacher to write about the specific time you managed a group project conflict, rather than your grade on the midterm. You are essentially ghostwriting the themes of your own recommendations to ensure they reinforce your brand. Let us look at a scenario involving a character named Marcus in Detroit. Marcus is applying for a scholarship from a national credit union aimed at first-generation college students with an interest in financial literacy. Marcus does not just ask his economics teacher for a letter. He provides that teacher with a list of 3 specific instances where he assisted his peers in understanding basic budgeting and a link to a blog he started to track his own journey of saving for college. When the teacher writes the letter, they are able to provide concrete evidence that Marcus is already living the mission of the credit union. The committee sees a student who is already a leader in their space, making him a low-risk, high-reward investment. However, even the most perfect application can be derailed by a lack of volume. The scholarship system is fundamentally a game of statistical probability. Students who win significant funding in 2026 are often applying to between 30 and 50 scholarships per year. This sounds impossible until you understand the concept of the master essay. You do not write 50 different essays. You write one master narrative, and then create a modular system where you can swap out the introduction and the conclusion to fit the specific mission statement of each organization. You are building a scholarship factory, not a boutique. This leads us to the critical distinction between national, regional, and institutional scholarships. We have covered how to win the private ones, but there is an entire category of funding that most Americans completely overlook because it is not based on grades, financial need, or essays. It is based on your state of residence, and the specific strategic economic goals of your local government. State-sponsored scholarship programs, such as the Hope Scholarship in Georgia or the Bright Futures in Florida, represent billions of dollars in funding that is often awarded automatically if you meet a specific GPA and residency requirement. But in 2026, many states have introduced a new layer of complexity: workforce shortage grants. These are scholarships specifically designed to funnel students into high-demand careers like nursing, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing. In some states, if you agree to work in that state for 3 years after graduation, the government will essentially pay your entire tuition bill regardless of your parents' income. This is a massive untapped financial lever that can completely eliminate the need for private loans. But there is a catch. If you fail to meet the work requirement or if you move out of state before your contract is up, these scholarships instantly convert into high-interest loans with retroactive interest. You are essentially signing a labor contract in exchange for an education. As we look at these state-level maneuvers, we are entering the final, most complex stage of the American scholarship system. You have learned how to optimize your FAFSA, how to bypass displacement, how to survive the CSS profile, and how to win private awards through narrative branding. But there is one final, invisible force that determines where the money actually goes. It is the world of institutional enrollment management software. Universities are now using artificial intelligence to predict exactly how much of a discount you need to say yes to an offer, and they are monitoring your every digital interaction with their brand to decide your worth. If you do not know how to game the software that is gaming you, you will always be at a disadvantage. You are about to learn how to manipulate your demonstrated interest data points to force an AI to offer you more money. The invisible architecture governing the distribution of merit scholarships in 2026 is no longer managed by human committees sitting in oak-paneled rooms. It is managed by high-frequency enrollment management algorithms. These systems, such as the industry-leading Slate CRM or Element 451, are designed to maximize a university's net tuition revenue by predicting student behavior with frightening accuracy. Every single interaction you have with a university, from the moment you search for their name on a major search engine to the time you spend on their financial aid page, is tracked, quantified, and assigned a numerical value known as a demonstrated interest score. In this digital ecosystem, your scholarship award is not a reward for your hard work. It is a precisely calculated financial incentive designed to secure your enrollment at the lowest possible cost to the institution. To understand the mechanics of this, we must look at the concept of behavioral tracking. Imagine a student named Jordan, a high school junior from Charlotte, North Carolina, in early 2026. Jordan visits a university website. He isn't just looking at the mascot. The university's CRM system is immediately logging his IP address. It tracks that he spent 7 minutes on the engineering curriculum page but 45 minutes on the net price calculator. The algorithm notes that he downloaded a PDF about study abroad programs in Spain. 2 days later, Jordan receives an automated email. The software tracks exactly how many seconds it took him to open that email, which links he clicked, and whether he viewed the video testimonial from a current engineering student. This data feeds into a predictive model that generates a yield probability score. If Jordan has a yield probability of 90%, the university knows he is highly likely to attend even without a massive financial nudge. In this scenario, the historical trend suggests the university may offer Jordan a smaller merit scholarship because they don't need to buy his enrollment. However, if the algorithm sees that Jordan is also looking at 3 direct competitor schools and his yield probability at this specific institution is only 40%, he becomes a prime candidate for a merit sweetener. This is where the university triggers a merit scholarship to act as a discount, lowering the net price just enough to make them the most attractive option compared to the competitors. Historical case studies of enrollment management strategies reveal that stealth applicants, those who applied to a university without ever having joined a mailing list, attended a webinar, or opened an official email, are at a severe financial disadvantage. Because the algorithm has zero data on a stealth applicant, it cannot predict their likelihood of enrollment. To the software, a stealth applicant is a high-risk entity. Potential outcomes for these students often include receiving significantly less merit aid or being placed on a waitlist, regardless of their academic stats, simply because the university does not want to waste an admission spot on someone who might have zero intention of attending. To turn this system in your favor, you must move from a passive recipient of information to a strategic generator of data points. This process is known as engineering your demonstrated interest profile. In 2026, this requires a disciplined, multi-channel approach. First, you must ensure that every digital interaction is tracked. This means always using the same primary email address for every college fair, every standardized test registration, and every university website visit. You must proactively engage with their digital content. Opening every email is the baseline, but you should also click at least 2 links within those emails and stay on the destination page for at least 90 seconds to signal high engagement to the tracking pixels. Furthermore, the timing of your interactions can influence the algorithm's perception of your financial sensitivity. Case studies suggest that students who repeatedly visit the financial aid and scholarship pages of a university website are flagged as price-sensitive. If you are a high-achieving student that the university wants for their rankings, but the software senses you are worried about the cost, it may automatically prioritize you for a merit award to prevent you from being scared off by the sticker price. Let us look at a specific scenario involving a character named Taylor from Seattle. Taylor has a 3.9 GPA and is a competitive applicant for several top-tier public flagships. She purposefully schedules virtual tours and signs up for department-specific webinars at her top 3 choices. However, for her second-choice school, she deliberately increases her engagement frequency in the 3 weeks leading up to the application deadline. She attends an online Q&A session with an admissions officer and asks a specific, thoughtful question that gets logged into her file. When the enrollment management software runs its weekly report, Taylor's yield probability at her second-choice school spikes. The university, seeing a high-stat student who is showing a massive surge in interest, views her as a winnable asset. Historical data indicates that this surge in demonstrated interest can lead to an invitation to a specialized honors college or an additional institutional leadership grant that wasn't originally on the table. This leads to the highly sophisticated strategy of the financial aid leverage play. Once the offers are in, you are no longer just a student, you are a data point in a university's mid-April yield panic. By 2026, many universities have internalized that students are using these digital tactics, so they have added a layer of human-AI collaboration in the final scholarship rounds. They will look at your engagement data alongside your FAFSA or CSS profile data to determine your walkaway price. This is the absolute maximum amount the university believes your family is willing to pay before you choose a cheaper competitor. If you understand your walkaway price, you can use it to negotiate. If a university offers you $15,000 in merit aid, but their direct competitor offers you $20,000, and your digital data shows you've been highly engaged with both, you can present the higher offer to the first university. The enrollment manager sees that you are an engaged, high-probability student who is only being held back by a $5,000 gap. Because they have already spent thousands of dollars in marketing and recruitment costs to get you to this point, it is often more cost-effective for them to find an extra $5,000 in their discretionary budget than to lose you and have to recruit a replacement student in the late summer. But there is a dangerous trap within this high-tech system that most students never see coming. It involves the way universities categorize your major and how that affects your scholarship eligibility. In the 2026 academic market, the scholarship system has become hyper-stratified. While the general university might offer a standard merit scholarship, individual colleges within that university, such as the School of Nursing or the College of Business, often have their own separate, hidden endowments. If you apply as an undecided major, you are effectively locking yourself out of these secondary pools of capital. You might be eligible for the $5,000 university-wide scholarship, but you are completely invisible to the $10,000 departmental scholarship reserved for specific disciplines. However, picking the wrong major just to chase a scholarship can lead to a devastating financial reversal. Many of these departmental awards are contingent upon you remaining in that specific major for all 4 years. If you enter as a chemical engineering major, secure a massive departmental grant, and then realize in your sophomore year that you actually want to study history, the university can and often will strip that scholarship away entirely. You could find yourself halfway through a degree with a sudden $20,000 annual increase in your tuition bill. We are about to dive into the high-stakes world of major-specific funding and the hidden cost of changing your mind. You need to know the specific contractual language hidden in the fine print of your award letter that dictates exactly what happens to your money if you decide to pivot your career path. This is the scholarship trap that creates the most transfer students in America, and understanding how to navigate these academic contracts is the only way to ensure your funding stays secure until graduation. To understand the true nature of the scholarship trap, we must look at the specific legal language contained within the award letter, which acts as a binding financial contract between the student and the institution. In 2026, The complexity of these contracts has reached an all-time high, particularly regarding major-specific funding. Let us look at a detailed case study involving a student named Caleb from Detroit. Caleb is a first-generation college student who has been accepted into a premier aerospace engineering program at a major university in the Midwest. Because of his high test scores in mathematics and his demographic profile, the College of Engineering awards him the Specialized Innovation Grant, a $15,000 annual award that, when combined with his other aid, makes his tuition almost zero. Caleb begins his freshman year, but by the second semester, he realizes that the grueling pace of high-level fluid dynamics and multivariable calculus is not aligned with his long-term career interests. He finds a profound passion for ethical philosophy and public policy. However, when Caleb visits the registrar to change his major, he discovers a devastating clause in his original financial aid agreement. The Specialized Innovation Grant is not a general university scholarship. It is a departmental asset owned exclusively by the College of Engineering. The moment Caleb officially declares a major in philosophy, he is no longer an engineering student, and the $15,000 grant is instantly revoked. Because it is mid-year, he cannot apply for new merit aid in the humanities department, which has a much smaller endowment. Caleb is left with a $15,000 hole in his budget for the current semester and a $60,000 deficit for the remainder of his degree. Historical trends show that this major lock phenomenon is one of the primary drivers of the high transfer rates among sophomore students, as they are forced to leave their institution simply because their financial aid is tethered to a career path they no longer wish to pursue. Beyond the major-specific traps, you must understand the technical rigors of satisfactory academic progress, commonly known as SAP. This is not a suggestion. It is a federal and institutional mandate that governs whether you keep your money year after year. Most students believe that as long as they maintain a decent GPA, their scholarship is safe. This is a dangerous oversimplification. In 2026, SAP is measured by three distinct metrics: your cumulative GPA, your pace of completion, and your maximum time frame. Imagine if we look at the pace of completion requirement. Federal regulations generally require that you successfully complete at least 67% of all the credit hours you attempt. Let us say a student named Sarah enrolls in 15 credits, but finds her chemistry course overwhelming. Fearing a low grade, she withdraws from the course after the add-drop deadline. On her transcript, this appears as a W. While the W does not affect her GPA, it counts as an attempted but uncompleted credit. If Sarah does this twice in 1 year, her completion rate can easily fall below the 67% threshold. The potential outcome is an immediate suspension of all federal and most institutional aid. Even if she has a 4.0 GPA in her other classes, she has technically failed to meet the SAP PACE requirement, and the university bursar will stop the flow of funds until she pays out of pocket to take extra classes and fix her completion ratio. Then there is the structural bait-and-switch known as scholarship front-loading. This is a highly calculated institutional strategy where a university offers a massive, impressive-sounding scholarship for the freshman year to secure the student's commitment, but provides no protection against future cost increases. Consider a historical case study where a university gives a student a fixed $10,000 merit scholarship. In 2026, the university increases tuition by 5%, and they increase the mandatory meal plan and housing costs by another 7%. Because the scholarship is a fixed dollar amount and not a percentage of tuition, the student's net cost increases every single year. By their senior year, the $10,000 scholarship covers a significantly smaller portion of the bill than it did during their freshman year. The university effectively used a high-value entry offer to capture the student, knowing that once the student is 3 years into a degree, they are statistically unlikely to transfer even if the price increases by several $1,000s. Even more hidden is the 8-semester limit, which creates the infamous 5th-year cliff. Most institutional scholarships are strictly limited to 4 years of undergraduate study. However, the data in 2026 shows that only 41% of students at public universities actually graduate in exactly 4 years. If you change your major, take a lighter course load 1 semester for mental health, or fail a required prerequisite that is only offered once a year, you are almost certainly heading for a 9th or 10th semester. The day you enter your 5th year, your merit scholarships and many of your grants vanish. You are left to pay the highest tuition rate of your entire college career with zero institutional support. This is why understanding the credit hour math is essential. If you are not completing 30 credits every single year, you are essentially planning for a fifth year that you cannot afford. Furthermore, we must address the Internal Revenue Service and the often ignored tax implications of the full-ride scholarship. In the United States, scholarship money is only tax-free if it is used for qualified education expenses, which the IRS strictly defines as tuition, mandatory fees, and required books and equipment. Any portion of a scholarship that is used for room and board, travel, or incidental living expenses is considered taxable income. Imagine a student who wins a comprehensive full-ride scholarship worth $60,000. $40,000 covers tuition and books, while $20,000 covers a high-end dorm and a premium meal plan. When tax season arrives in early 2027, that student will receive a Form 1098-T from the university. The IRS expects that student to report that $20,000 as unearned income. If the student has no other job, they may still owe a significant amount in federal and state taxes on that money. If they do have a part-time job, this scholarship income can push them into a higher tax bracket, leading to a surprise tax bill of $2,000 or $3,000 that the student never budgeted for. Finally, there is the dead end of the transfer student market. If you lose your scholarship or find the university environment toxic, you might think you can just take your academic talent elsewhere. But the United States scholarship system is notoriously punitive toward transfer students. Most high-value merit scholarships are reserved exclusively for first-time freshmen to help the university with their initial rankings. When you transfer, you are viewed as a secondary market applicant. While the university might accept your credits, they rarely offer transfer students the same level of institutional grant money. You are essentially paying a transfer tax in the form of lost aid. We have now deconstructed the academic contracts, the GPA requirements, the tax traps, and the dangers of changing your major. You are equipped with the forensic knowledge to protect your funding until the moment you walk across that stage. But there is one final ultimate hurdle that every scholarship recipient faces. It is the post-graduation reality check. There are specific types of funding that actually require you to prove your worth after you leave, and if you fail the final verification process, the system has one last way to reach into your pocket and take it all back. We are moving into the final stage. The exit interview, the loan forgiveness traps, and the secret to ensuring your degree actually delivers the return on investment you were promised. This is the end of the masterclass, where we reveal how to cross the finish line without a single hidden debt following you into the professional world. The transition from being a student to being a professional in the year 2026 involves a high-stakes legal ritual that most graduates treat with the casual indifference of a software terms of service agreement. This ritual is the mandatory exit interview. If you have accepted a single dollar of federal student aid or institutional loans, you are legally required to complete this process before your degree is conferred. While the university frames this as a helpful informational session, it is, in mathematical reality, a formal acknowledgement of debt. During this process, you are presented with a ledger that aggregates every loan, every capitalized interest point, and every disbursement fee you have accrued over the last 4 years. Historical trends show that this is the exact moment when the psychological weight of the American education system finally hits the student. You are no longer looking at an abstract award letter. You are looking at a binding amortization schedule that will dictate your lifestyle, your housing options, and your ability to build wealth for the next decade or more. To navigate this exit safely, you must first understand the volatile landscape of loan servicing in 2026. Once you leave the university's protected ecosystem, your debt is often handed off to third-party loan servicers. Case studies of the preceding decade illustrate a consistent pattern of administrative errors, where payments are misapplied, interest-only periods are incorrectly calculated, and income-driven repayment applications are lost in bureaucratic limbo. Potential outcomes for the unobservant graduate include falling into technical default because a servicer failed to properly transition an account from a grace period to an active repayment status. You must meticulously document every interaction with these entities, keeping a forensic record of your original loan promissory notes and every Form 1098 you receive for tax purposes. The most dangerous territory in the post-graduation landscape is the allure of Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF. This federal program offers the potential outcome of total debt cancellation after 10 years of qualifying service in a nonprofit or government role. However, the historical data surrounding PSLF is a warning of extreme bureaucratic rigor. For years, the rejection rate for PSLF applicants hovered near 99% because of microscopic technicalities in how the payments were structured or how the employer was classified. Imagine a graduate named Liam who spends 7 years working for what he believes is a qualifying nonprofit, only to discover during a mid-career audit in 2026 that his specific tax filing status under a parent organization disqualified every single one of his 84 payments. He is forced to start the 10-year clock from zero. To avoid this, you must submit an employment certification form every single year, rather than waiting until the end of the decade, to force the Department of Education to verify your progress in real time. Furthermore, we must address the ultimate scholarship clawback mechanism, the service-based grant. Many high-value scholarships in fields like education, nursing, and rural medicine are structured as conditional gifts. Consider the federal Teach Grant or various state-level medical scholarships. These programs offer significant funding up front, but they carry a strict legal requirement that you work in a high-need field or a specific geographic desert for a set number of years. In 2026, the administrative oversight on these programs has become ruthlessly efficient. If a student like Chloe, whom we discussed earlier, receives a $30,000 state grant to teach in an under-resourced district, but leaves after 3 years instead of 4 to pursue a corporate role, that grant does not simply go away. Under the terms of the contract, the entire $30,000 instantly converts into a direct unsubsidized loan. Even more devastating, the interest is calculated retroactively to the date the funds were first disbursed 4 years prior. Chloe could find herself suddenly owing $45,000 for a decision she thought was a simple career move. This is why you must treat every service-based scholarship not as free money, but as a forgivable loan that requires perfect compliance until the final day of your contract. As you enter the professional world, the scholarship system has one final way to impact your financial solvency: the tax bomb. While the United States government occasionally introduces temporary legislation to make forgiven debt tax-free, the historical trend suggests that most forms of debt cancellation are treated by the Internal Revenue Service as taxable income. Imagine if, after 20 years of income-driven repayment, a professional named Marcus has $100,000 of remaining student debt forgiven. In the eyes of the IRS, Marcus did not just get a debt cleared. He effectively earned an extra $100,000 in a single year. Unless specific legislative protections are active in that tax year, Marcus could receive a tax bill for $30,000 or more, due immediately. This is the hidden cost of long-term repayment plans that no financial aid office discusses during freshman orientation. To truly measure the success of your scholarship strategy, you must calculate your degree's return on investment using a 10-year horizon. A degree is not a trophy. It is a capital asset. If you graduated with $20,000 in debt but your starting salary is $80,000 in a high-growth field, your ROI is mathematically sound. However, if you spent 4 years chasing a prestigious name and graduated with $150,000 in debt for a career that pays $50,000, you have effectively entered into a predatory financial arrangement with yourself. The scholarship system is designed to make the latter look like the former. The marketing, the prestigious-sounding award names, and the beautiful campus architecture are all part of an institutional effort to obscure the cold, hard math of net tuition revenue. The mastery of this system requires you to remain a student long after you have received your diploma. You must stay informed on the shifting landscape of federal interest rates, the emergence of new income share agreements which are becoming more prevalent in 2026, and the evolving tax codes that govern educational benefits. The American higher education system is a multi-billion-dollar machine that relies on the financial illiteracy of its participants to stay profitable. By decoding the algorithms of the FAFSA, bypassing the traps of scholarship displacement, and navigating the complexities of institutional methodology, you have transformed yourself from a source of revenue into a strategic operator. But as we conclude this deep dive, you must realize that the rules of this game are currently being rewritten. As artificial intelligence begins to automate more of the enrollment process, and as state legislatures move to regulate how endowments are spent, the strategies that worked in 2025 may become obsolete by 2027. The hidden discount racket we discussed at the beginning of this masterclass is currently evolving into something even more complex and data-driven. There is a new emerging frontier of collegiate finance that involves private equity firms buying student debt portfolios and universities, experimenting with dynamic pricing models that change your tuition based on your real-time academic performance. The finish line you just crossed is actually the starting line for a much larger, global competition for human capital. You have the tools to survive the system as it exists today, but you must be prepared for the day the system decides to change the rules once again. The question is no longer how you will pay for college, but how you will protect your future wealth in an era where your very potential is being traded like a commodity on a digital exchange.